My name is Scott Kruse, and for my personal TED-style talk, I'm going to be discussing a brief history of the United States trade embargo with Cuba. An embargo is defined as a prohibition of trade and commerce between two or more countries. Relationships between the United States and Cuba began to disintegrate following the revolutionary rise to power of Fidel Castro. As a result of a Cuban military coup between 1956 and 1959, Castro overthrew his predecessor, President General Fulgencio Batista, and enacted a socialist communist state ruled by a central government in Havana. Fidel Castro's communist and socialist ideas were indoctrinated through Marxist policies adopted by the Soviet Union. In his first year of presidency, Castro began to seize American privately owned properties and placed heavy tariffs on American products coming into Cuba. Weakened relationships between the United States and Cuba forced the Cuban government to rely heavily on trade with the Soviet Union, which represented an opposing force to America in the Cold War. As a result of the strengthening relationship between the Soviet Union and Cuba, American President Dwight D. Eisenhower severed diplomatic and commercial ties between the two countries in the form of a trade embargo. This embargo completely barred the trade of goods and services between Cuba and the United States, which has hindered any diplomatic relationships within the last 55 years. There have been recent efforts to remove this trade embargo as it represents antiquated tensions dating back to the Cold War era. On December 17, 2014, United States President Barack Obama announced the government was planning on re-evaluating the trade embargo in order to lift restrictions on trade between the two countries. In January of 2015, the United States government officially took its first step in lifting the trade embargo by easing trade and travel restrictions to Cuba. This means that Americans may now invest in Cuban business and that travel is now possible, albeit difficult. According to the United States federal government, commercial tourism is still prohibited, although Americans authorized to enter Cuba no longer need to apply for a special license. Despite growing efforts to reduce its impact, the trade embargo presently remains intact. It is now the responsibility of the United States Congress to remove this outdated embargo in order to bring much-needed trade and investment into the Cuban economy. The global community must support this decision to lift trade restrictions, as it will represent further progress and development in the global market. Animosity between the United States and Cuba will only be resolved through an improvement of communications fostered by healthy trade relationships. It is time for this embargo to end. Thank you.